pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you and welcome again. And if you're attending and have not signed the form, please do so. I will do roll call. Councilmember Sharp.
Here.
Councilmember Batcher.
Here.
Councilmember Morgan.
Here.
Councilmember Thomas.
Here.
4 council members present. All right, at this time I will recess the regular meeting, which was just called to order, and we will open up the Truth and Taxation public hearing. And I will turn it over to City Administrator Newsom on my left, also in attendance, City Attorney Brian Ross Anderson on my right. City Administrator Newsom.
Okay, let's go over. On Monday, September 20th, the council approved a preliminary levy at 10.60. We had several budget workshops throughout basically since mid-summer. As of the Truth and Taxation meeting tonight, we're at 3.56. Council had told me to go for the 3.5% increase, so that's what I did. The next council meeting, which is December 20th, we must pass a resolution adopting the final tax levy. If we don't, it stays exactly the same as last year. That's how it works. If you don't pass the resolution and submit it to the state, it stays the same. So let's go through the tax levy and the 2022 budget. The levy will look different this year than it's ever looked before because we're levying our departments. Fire department will have its own levy. They're at $74,000. Ambulance has a $60,000 levy. The community center has a $40,000 levy, which is down a little from some past years. In the past, everything was run through the general fund. Cemetery's got a $2,000 levy, and capital improvement $307,661. The debt service is our bonds. You'll see that that has gone down. You can see the percentage of change, those have gone down this year. As the bonds get further along, our payments have gone down on some of them, and we have money in the account. That's something I look at when I do the budgeting for debt service. How much money do we have in there? How much do we really have to collect to make our payments for the next year? Here's what our trend looks like, a 10-year trend. Going slowly up, that's to be expected. Everything costs more. Cost of staffing goes up. Cost of equipment goes up. It's pretty hard to keep your levy exactly the same and expect to be able to provide the same level of service, because you won't. Everything costs more. Here's our proposed expenses. Just a glance at them. I have another slide coming up where you'll see the changes that have happened. One of the big ones I want to point out is planning and zoning went way up because we have a full-time staff, and the cost of the building official goes up with the increased projects we have in town. Police department went down quite a bit because we will not be hiring that 4th officer. Administration went down quite a bit for 2022 because we have not budgeted for an administrative assistant. Public Works is up, the cost of the staff, the cost of the supplies, you'll see they're up quite a bit. Street lighting is down, just reflects closer to what the actual cost is, those LED lights. Parks is about the same. Libraries, we received a bill from the county. We have no say really in what that's going to cost us. We are invoiced from the county. That's where that number comes from. Economic development has been kind of steady throughout the years. Transfers will be 0 this year. That was after talking with our auditors, and they said it's more transparent if we levy all of the accounts separately instead of transferring all this money. Here's a look at the budget numbers, just basically shown another way. we're still under $1 million for our levy, coming in at $993,764, which is pretty good. It's really not a huge change. Other cities are over $1 million. There's explaining the changes again, a $5,965 increase due to what we're billed from Sibley County for the library. We're down $37,500 with administration because we do not have an administrative assistant. We went from 0 to $3,800 in elections because this year was not an election year. We didn't have expenses. Next year we will again. The increase $30,163 in planning and zoning is just due to the increased number of permits and a full-time planning and zoning position. We're down $65,298 in police administration due to cutting that fourth officer. We're up $31,381 in public works due to staffing, the staffing costs, and the cost of the supplies needed in public works. Capital improvement plan. Here's a look at some of the biggest things that we're putting money away for in the capital improvement plan. A lot of expenses with the fire department and a lot of expenses with public works. What will we be spending on from the capital improvement next year? Heart monitor for the ambulance, helmets for the fire department, streets and sidewalks, I lumped them all together, total of $145,000 for public works, $23,350 for the community center paints and those LED lights we talked about outside, and then the next year will be the inside. And the MVEC loan payment, we have that every year for 10 years, $10,000. That was the loan we took out. Street lights, LED.
So the 9,500 that was on before was just replacement bulbs, not part of the capital? It was in one of the budget items for the streets. Yeah, it was 11.5, I think, right there, street lighting. So that 9,500 is
That's the
for
actual cost of
addition,
the,
different ones, not
Yeah.
part of the one.
that's not that loan payment, that's the cost of the lights. Electricity. Our tax, here's Arlington's tax rate. We've been, the bigger the city, usually the lower the tax rate. I follow like Mankato and North Mankato. I think North Mankato is at about 40%. It is good to see ours going down. We're at 73.09 now. Our tax capacity, that goes down because we're increasing our tax capacity. You should see big changes in the future. Gino's improvements he's doing to the Seneca facility, the housing developments we have coming to town. We have more potential to pull that tax money from a bigger pool rather than a smaller pool. For example, like the city of Greenville, they still need to provide the water treatment plant, streets, the same as we do. But when you have only a couple businesses and not as many houses, our tax capacity is growing as we bring in more businesses and more houses. That's a good thing. You want to see that number go down. Questions? Anybody out in the audience?
Okay. We will be taking action on the final levy number a little later in the meeting. Any questions? One more time, any questions? All right. We'll close the hearing at 6:39 p.m. and reconvene the regular meeting. Item 4, approve the agenda. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda?
I have one addition, just under communications. In front of everybody, there was the notice from Mediacom about the increased rates.
Okay. Anything else? If not, a motion is in order to approve the agenda as amended.
Motion to approve the agenda as amended? Second.
Motion by Councilmember Batchor, second by Councilmember Sharpie to approve the agenda with the one change, one addition, I should say. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Move on to the consent agenda. Consent agenda this evening consists of the following. Approval of the bills, approval of the November 15th, 2021 budget workshop minutes, approval of the November 15th, 2021 city council minutes, approval of November 29, 2021 special city council minutes. Approve the hiring of Alexandra Steer as a firefighter for the Arlington Fire Department. Accepting the resignation of Danielle DeBoer as EMT for the Arlington Area Ambulance Service. Item G, accept resignation of Christopher Mordica from the Arlington Area Ambulance Service. And lastly, item H, accept resignation of Daniel Kimmerly, excuse my pronunciation, it probably is not right, as EMT of the Arlington Area Ambulance Service. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Make motion to approve this consent agenda.
I'll second.
Motion by Councilmember Batchor, second by Councilmember Thomas to approve the consent agenda as read. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carried. Item 6, addressing the council. Is there anyone present this evening that wishes to address the council at this time? Hearing none, we'll move on to the announcements. No announcements, then move on to item 8, communications.
We have the board, the public summary of the November MMPA board meeting in the packet. If you have any questions about that, let me know.
And then the MediaCom rates.
And then the media count increases.
There was some question at one of the meetings, I think probably EDA, regarding MediaCom service, fiber optic service to some of the businesses. Do you know if they were able to make contact with
And
MediaCom?
I do not know if
Okay.
Rich was able to start putting it.
Yeah, there's a few businesses in town that have an interest in trying to get hooked up to fiber optic for their needs.
So I know Frontier also has a line of fiber in town now. And MediaCom, and I would imagine RS Fiber. I'm not sure of any others.
I think those would be the only three.
And I know Frontier, prior to this, their service was probably not fiber, but I do know that they have a line in town now.
Both MediaCom and Frontier put in fiber this summer. They have regular permits.
That's right, I do remember that.
Just in the
Yep.
business district or where they put it?
No, they
They
were
were
in the
all over town.
residential and everything. To each service line, I know,
Yeah.
like if the service comes off the alley, they brought their service up to the end of the alley, so it would be able to hook in, so it should be better service.
You'd probably still have to ask them to
Yeah,
bring a line from the main one to your home if you wanted fiber.
I just think they
I'm-
would have sent something out about that if they had upgraded services.
Well, MediaCom's had fiber for a long time in town. Frontier, I think, is new, fresh.
It's coax is what they ran in the house, so.
Yeah. Unless you ask.
okay, move on to item 9, reports, November Public Works. Daniel, you're giving the report tonight?
Sure am. How's everybody doing?
Good, and you?
Good.
Good, welcome.
Thanks. All right.
Turn your microphone on, please.
Just push the button there.
Pull it closer to you. That one.
Can you hear me now?
Thank you.
All right, let's see. Updates. We did all the Christmas lights for uptown and here at the community center. We rehung the cable that got pulled down last winter by that truck. There by Wynot's. Had multiple fixes on the wires. We restrung them together, spliced them and everything. We got that all up. We set up for Arlie Dazzle, trash cans and picnic tables and cleaning up there. We got the snow fences, out here on Lynch and then over on Frenzel, where the wind blows the snow drifts across the street. And then, lots of street sweeping. The leaves just didn't wanna fall this year, they stayed around. So we're still sweeping on those. But getting ready for snow. We got the trucks all greased and fluids checked, and the salt truck, got the blade and the spreader on the salt truck. Snow blower it's ready to go for when we do have snow. This is shop gravel with lot cleared of excavated ground and boring pilings from last year to make room for snow hauling and dumping. And worked on alleyways, smoothing them out before the ground freezes. Just keeping an eye on the building heating, no issues to report on that. And then maintenance on the equipment this fall. We've done oil changes on all the pickups, the Dodge Sport and the Chevy. Both lawn mowers, push mower, salt truck, sweeper, tractor, mosquito sprayer, bucket truck, chipper, and the pump on the water trailer. We got all that oil changed on that. Fuel filters for the sweeper and the tractor, both lawn mowers. Put a new fuel kit and 3 of the weed whips and 3 chainsaws. Air filter changes. We got tractor, sweeper, loader, lawn mowers. We blew out the ones in the pickups and the dump trucks. And then for our sweeper, we've done some maintenance on it. We replaced all the rubber guides and shoes. Replaced leaking pressure switches. We blew out the water tank and all the lines and spray nozzles. We replaced the gutter broom and the main broom. We greased them. Most of the time we grease before every use. There's some that we do every other. We tightened the drive chain on the conveyor belt, and we replaced chipper blades and tightened roller springs and sharpened roller edges. And, looking ahead, we're going to be building the ice skating rink at Four Seasons, and then we'll just wait till we get some consistent freezing temperatures so we can actually make ice. We got Buck Thomas's plaque in, so we're waiting on, we got a clear protective plate to go over it. So once that comes in, then we'll get it reinstalled out there at Sportsman's Park. Working on building inspections. We can do a lot more now that winter's here and all the community centers kind of slow down with activities, so we can get more in depth in our building inspections and working on things around. The sprinkler dry air line replacement here at the community center. It's scheduled. It should be early January. Work be done on it, and then pretty much just waiting for it to snow so we can get out and plow snow.
Friday.
And the payloader's all fixed up, ready to go? I know there was a little problem with it or breakdown.
As far as I
Yeah.
know, I think it is. I haven't heard anything different.
Okay.
It's still down.
Okay. Any questions for Dan?
Thanks.
Good.
All right.
Thanks
Thank
very
you very
much.
much. Appreciate it.
You guys have a good evening.
You too. Item B, an ambulance report. Jamie, good evening.
Good evening. Mark was supposed to come tonight. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to make it, but he did give me what I'm supposed to go through. One of the things that he's kind of spearheading is he's reaching out to other fire departments and rescue services to see if there's anybody that would be interested in expanding their EMS knowledge. And so tonight he's actually in Mayor, speaking to the fire department there. Last week he spoke to Waconia Fire, and we were able to get some interest as far as recruitment goes. And excuse me, still plans on talking to Glencoe, Hutchinson, Watertown, North Young America, and Cologne as well. So some of the things that he's kind of discussing is in regards to how his experience being with a particular fire department and kind of expanding his EMS skill set and how that's only helped him, especially with his patient care. And and how it's kind of benefited him, and also kind of doing some good PR work for the Arlington ambulance, so pretty happy about that. Let's see here. As far as our mentorship program for our EMRs that are EMT students, he just has notation here that Lee is on track to test at the end of December. And he seems to be pretty confident, so we're still working with him. Brianna, she stressed that she may not be ready. However, it just states here that they were both interested in other study nights, and they've been kind of doing this together on their own. So they've been kind of working together. They have enlisted some help from some of our paramedics, and that mentorship program has pretty well, it's been received very, very well. So we're hoping, fingers crossed. That's pretty much his report. Mine is, I did get the results in regards to the Minnesota Ambulance Association. I was able to secure a South Central alternate director position with that organization, so I'm really excited, especially they have a particular committee that I'm really wanting to get on, and that's the Rural Sustainability Committee. So I'm excited about that new journey there. We did participate with the Arla Dazzle Parade. I'm still kind of waiting to hear from the Firehouse Subs grant I had applied in October. I haven't heard anything from them yet. And then also we did have the opportunity to speak to the Arlington Fire Department right before Thanksgiving, kind of talk about scope of practice, roles and responsibilities, and other key points to kind of help bridge that relationship a little bit stronger. Give some good, clear communication as far as that goes. I just wanted to touch base to a couple of things. So before we had the medics who were interested in the .8 positions, we were kind of averaging 4 to 7 night availability. So our ALS availability, I sent it to both the Sibley County Sheriff's Office and the hospital. So if there are other local agencies around here who do need like a ALS intercept after hours and our medics are available, that's an additional service for those ambulance services. In December, we have 15 nights of coverage with ALS, which is excellent because it gives us that opportunity to snag those interfacility transfers from the RSMC here in town. So I just wanted to share that. And then just a quick note in regards to our ICRs, just for perspective purposes, in 2019 we had a total of 452 ICRs. Last year we had 416 to date. I am at 548 calls for service. And that does include 911s, transfers, cancellations, standbys, events, that sort of thing. So yeah, I was gonna say, it's a lot. But I just one of those numbers I wanted to share with you guys, because that's bittersweet, but still really neat. You can see the demand is there, so. Other than that, that's all I really had. There is a notation here on the agenda in regards to the sale of the Polaris Ranger and trailer. After much consideration regarding those pieces of equipment, we use them predominantly for events, and it is a huge expense for the ambulance service, and I thought it would only be fair to offer that up to the Arlington Fire Department, because I feel that they would benefit that, and because we don't use it as often as we'd like, I feel that they would get better use from it. And then we would just make an agreement in regards if we need to use it for events and such. So that's one of the things that we were entertaining.
Okay. Just need council approval on that. Is there any questions or comments from the council in regard to the sale of that Polaris Ranger and trailer to the Arlington Fire Department, for fire relief, I should say?
Yes.
For $10,000.
I'm assuming it was bought for the racetrack events?
We did a lot of
Primarily, or-
research on it, and I'm
Yes.
gonna make the generalized assumption.
It was purchased for a few reasons. Believe one was for the racetrack, one was for any we've had some ATV, in the past, we had ATV accidents where we took it out to help, cause,
Yeah.
obviously they're out in the middle of a field. A few other things, it works well at the horse arena, we've taken it out there for events, cause it, the, stretcher doesn't move through that sand too well. So that's kinda what it was purchased for in the beginning. The ambulance, that was a lot of the money that, came in from our, annual hog gross and things like that, that we purchased that trailer and that Ranger and got it all decked out. So we could do, but yeah, it got used mostly at the racetrack, but we did have a few calls where we used it on too to get out to the middle of harder areas, so it did come in handy for that. But yeah, there's quite a bit of maintenance to that thing too, if I remember.
Yes. Yeah. Through the last year, I did receive one call that it was needed to go locate some individuals, and one of the things that we dealt with is our ambulances don't have hitches.
Yeah.
And so it's kinda like,
I don't, it's not even very good to pull. I mean,
No.
you can't see nothing behind it.
So we relied on a firefighter / EMT to help get that piece of equipment to help aid in the location of some individuals, and it kind of seemed to be a little bit of a cumbersome type of thing, but to me, this would only make sense in regards to offering it up to the Fire Relief Association.
Okay, is there a motion to approve that?
I'll make a motion to approve the sale of the Polaris Ranger and trailer to the Arlington Fire Relief for $10,000.
I'll second.
Motion by Councilmember Morgan, second by Councilmember Thomas, to approve of the sale of the Polaris Ranger and trailer to the Arlington Fire Relief for $10,000. That is being sold by the ambulance service to the Arlington Fire Relief. Is there more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Okay,
Other
thank
than
you.
that, that's all I had.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Item C, O&M report from People Service.
And just let me know if you have any questions on the report from People Service. Otherwise, I like the way they're doing it now. They give us a breakdown of basically everything we do.
I'm assuming they're still communicating and working with Northland Drying on their ongoing
Lee has
remedies.
been filling in for a lot of people in other towns. I haven't seen him in the past couple of
Okay.
weeks. Today was the first day I'd seen him in almost 2 weeks, and he's just been very busy in other towns, so.
Yep. I think the council relies on them as far as their reports back on how things are going at Northland Drying. It seems to be a good
I don't
good
think he's had-
communication.
Yeah, he's been
Yeah.
he's
Right,
been out of town.
right, yeah, yeah. Okay, anything on that? We will move along to ordinances, resolutions. Resolution 87-2021, a resolution accepting a resignation and declaring a vacancy.
This is for Craig Buss, who has left us.
I'll introduce Resolution 87, 2021, a resolution accepting resignation and declaring a vacancy.
Second.
Thank you, Matt, for using your microphone.
Pardon?
I said, thank you, Matt, for using your microphone. I could hear it now.
Resolution 87-2021, introduced by Councilmember Batchor, second by Councilmember Sharpie, and that is a resolution accepting a resignation and declaring a vacancy, and that resignation is for Councilmember Craig Buss, effective November 16th. So, just ratifying that tonight. Any discussion, any input? If not, vote by roll call. Councilmember Sharpie.
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas.
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan.
Yes.
Councilmember Batchor.
Yes.
4 votes in favor, none opposed. Resolution is adopted. And we will be discussing that vacancy a little further down in the meeting. All right, under new business, item 12, approve deny amendment number 4, water tower equipment location lease.
We've been talking about this at a few prior council meetings, Attorney Armisen gave an update, we've been talking about the dollar amount to have them add additional things to our water tower. Attorney Armisen, take over.
Yes, we have run the technical details through our city engineer, Bolden Mank, specifically Jamie Connor, and I think he's been quite meticulous in requiring Verizon to provide the required structural analyses and installation details in order to protect our water tower. They originally offered us another $150 a month rent, and Mr. Connor at Bolden Mink kindly provided us with a study that they had access to regarding the rents paid in other communities on water towers. And based on that, and also the fact that Verizon wanted to increase the number of antennas from 9 to 12, in other words, a 25% increase, we countered their $150 increase offer with $568.35 a month, which gets us up to an even $2,400, which is a 25% increase. The logic being that if they're adding 25% more antennas, they should pay us 25% more rent. We also compared that $2,400 a month to the study that Mr. Connor provided, which indicates that puts us right in the median, or maybe a little higher than the median for communities of our size. We expected some argument from Verizon, but they approved it. And I think they were anxious to get the agreement done. I think that put some pressure on them to agree to the increase. Also, this is an amendment number 4, so it ties into the previous lease agreements, one of which says that there's an automatic 3% inflationary increase each year on those lease payments. So we do have a buffer for inflation already built in. At this time, I guess it's my recommendation that the council approve amendment number 4 to the water tower equipment location lease.
Now, is that 3% per year, that automatically will go up that, or do we have to notify them that we're?
It's automatically goes up. However, city staff should always be vigilant in making sure that they do that.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve amendment number 4 to the water tower equipment location lease.
I'll second.
Motion by Councilmember Morgan, second by Councilmember Thomas to approve the amendment number 4, water tower equipment location lease. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carried. Just want to thank Attorney Arneson for the work he's done on this. I know they've been copying me in on all the emails that have been going on, and it was just confusing at times, but it was brought to a good conclusion, and I thank you for that.
Thanks. And our engineer did a good job too.
Yes, yes. Some of the sketches and everything, which, you know, were just very detailed, and it looked like they knew what we wanted. And I think the biggest thing there is we wanted to make sure that they were taking down equipment that wasn't going to be used before they put up the new equipment, so that we don't get bogged down with unused equipment up there. So, right, moving on to item 13, approve or deny adjustment and increase of 2022 people service operations and maintenance agreement.
We already have an agreement in place with People Service, and in that agreement, it says that our prices will go up each year based on the consumer price index. So this is just something that we have to sign off on every year. We already agreed to increases when we signed that agreement with People Service. This is really so that it's open to everyone. Everyone can see what it's going up each year.
Mhm.
So they can, in the newspaper, everyone can see what's going to happen. We have to approve this. I would not argue against this since we did approve the agreement already.
So that's pretty typical, is that in our budget then for this
And
coming
then
year?
I budget for it. I actually, when I'm working on the budget early on in the year, I'll call Greg Stang and say, I know you don't know yet, but give me a ballpark what you think it's gonna go up, and he's usually pretty close.
Mhm.
So he told me 6%, so that's what I had based it off of when I did the budgeting.
I'll make a motion to approve adjustment and increase for 2022 for per People Services, Operations and Maintenance Agreement.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Batchor, second by Councilmember Sharpie to approve the adjustment and increase for 2022 per the People Service Operations and Maintenance Agreement. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Item 14, approve, deny proposed projects for Safe Routes to School grant application.
Phil?
Hello.
Hello, Phil.
How is everyone?
Wonderful.
Okay, so as you see up on the TV, that is obviously it's a draft. I have to finalize it with our engineers, but this is what I'm looking at to submit to the Safe Routes to School grant that, as you're aware of, that I've been working on. Now, as you see with this, there's that yellow, which is pretty much increase in bike lanes and stuff, and the justification for this is I drove around and was mapping stuff, and I noticed there was a lot of we have a lot of bike signage, but not a lot of bike lanes. And from my experience, it might be wise to, depending on how it works, finance-wise, that we might want to increase that. However, I will also, pivoting from that, based off of the previous Safe Routes to School grant that we did in the past back in 2013, it focused heavily around Sibley East. And so, as you see in the far left corner, Amy, if you don't mind pointing that out for me, where
On the
St.
bottom.
Paul Lutheran Church is, right down, yes, right where which is,
Where the school is.
exactly.
St. Paul School.
Yes, St. Paul's School. I figured there wasn't a lot of attention to them last grant, so I figured it would be wise to focus on them for this grant, given that they use the park in that area a lot, and based on just the recommendations and everything, it would be wise to, make it safer for kids to walk to school and stuff there. And as you see with the map, it would increase sidewalks, crosswalks and things like that. I'm also considering, when it comes to crosswalks, to increase the size of them. What that means is kind of make them like
Do you want me to pull that
speed.
up?
Yeah, if you don't mind, like somewhat like a speed bump, but it's not literally a speed bump. It's just something that would cause people to slow down, something along these lines. It's actually more cost effective than speed bumps would be. It's also more, when it comes to snow removal and stuff, it's actually easier to remove snow from these than it would be a speed bump, cause less issues. But beyond that, I want to stress too, my contact at the state when it comes to the Safe Routes to School grant, the best way to put this is, you don't want to overcomplicate this to make it basically around the town, because they are in talks of making another grant that focuses on the town, where this one just focuses on schools, like making it safe access to schools. So, Amy, if you don't mind pulling back to the map. As you see with this, a lot of the work, particularly the work around St. Paul's, focuses around making safe access to there. Now, granted, you also see there being new sidewalks around Four Seasons Park and Memorial Park and Fairview Park, just to make a connection, because when I talked to Sibley East, the principal there, well, superintendent, sorry, they have some students around there, so I figured that it would benefit them to maybe focus on putting sidewalks there. However, I don't know, depending on what grant money we get from it, I don't know if we could be able to afford that at this time. But it's just something, they kind of wanted a condensed area that focuses pretty much walking distance to the school, condensed wise. So beyond that, if anyone has any questions, I'd be more than willing to answer.
So with those speed bumps, what roads are those going on?
Well, particularly around where St. Paul is, it's going to be where I create a crosswalk. Do you mind zooming in, Amy, real quick?
St. Paul's.
Yeah, where the green is, it's going to be particularly where it crosses into the park. It would be there. Particularly where the school is too on West Adams, you would have those right there. That would be the size increase. Now I did talk to the superintendent of Sibley East. They would be somewhat interested in doing something like that. I just have to see if they're still interested in it. I would have to go a little bit further into it, because they already have crosswalks there, but I would be interested in maybe increasing them. I just want to see how the school board would feel about that. But that's generally where St. Paul is, where it would be there.
So I know at the planning and zoning meeting, the consensus of the committee was to expand what you have on here to incorporate the northwest neighborhood up there.
Correct.
With either some kind of bike path or something to put on the map. And I don't see that on here.
Well,
so
I
it's just-
did. I'm not sure if you saw the email that I sent out to the planning and zoning. I did create a map showing a future expansion of that, but through my conversation with my contact at the state, from what we talked about at the planning and zoning, he felt that would be better to do if that other grant for the whole town. The best way to put this would be, it would be easier for us, logistically speaking, if the next grant would happen for the whole town, for us to do it then. Now it's not. It would create more complications, and we might not be able to get approved as easily as we would be if we condensed and focused around where the schools would be. I mean, we could maybe make a case for it, but he's not confident enough for us to do it, because I showed him a map of how we would connect stuff, because it would be wise maybe to do bike lanes from there. However, based on the statistics that I've found in town, there's not a lot of children in these certain areas. I mean, there are, but it's
always going to change.
Yeah,
It's always going to be changing.
exactly. And so with that, from my just perspective, it would be wise just to focus around the schools, because we would have a better argument for it. Now, at the same time, the reason why I'm somewhat hesitant to do that as well is because there's no clear guarantee that second grant will happen anytime soon. And with this grant, we are kind of limited. I'm not sure if I mentioned this with planning and zoning, and if I didn't, I apologize. But with this grant, we are kind of limited till the end of 2024. So if we do this grant in 2 phases, things can change. And we might end up having to push it depending on pricing, and it also depends on how much they give us, because it all depends on construction costs, which we can get 100% back. But like, let's say if we do the whole town to focus on this, it's $200,000, and they only give us $80,000. We can only focus on that. But even then, they don't like having multiple phases. They rather have it. The best way to put it is they like to have it condensed, and they like to simplify it. And the map that I proposed to them, that I sent to planning and zoning later today, they were adamant about it, but it's just like you should condense it more.
Do you have any examples of that speed, what we're calling a, I don't
Speed
know.
bump.
It's not really a speed bump, it's more of a
What do you mean by examples?
It's
You don't mind
elevated,
me
like
asking?
in our climate. So like when I look at that, it's got paver brick in the middle.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that's in California somewhere where it
Oh,
doesn't get
well,
cold.
no, I actually took that out back east where I'm from. That's actually, I made sure that it was similar to what we have back home in Pittsburgh where we get snow and stuff. We have a few of those.
Anything in the Midwest, you know, like Minnesota, Wisconsin.
There's some of them,
North
I've driven
Dakota.
over some of them, I don't know.
What I can say to that is, because I've had certain areas in Pennsylvania that get serious snow, they have those. I've talked to some planners that I know from there. They've had no issues with removing snow from. They actually, they have issues more with speed bumps because of
Oh,
how.
yeah. Clobber the thing.
Exactly. With this, it's wide enough where if you know, as long as you know where it's at, you can adjust and it will just easily go over it.
So you have the ones down here, are there any other ones on that map?
Well, I marked crosswalks, and through my research, which was over the weekend, because I was kind of teetering on this, and then I found a little bit more evidence to back me, where when it comes to St. Paul, it might be wise for us to do it, just for the fact that it would cause people to slow down, but at the same time, it may not benefit us. So,
Yeah, I think you gotta weigh where the most people are at and
right.
where, you know, where
That's
are we seeing issues?
And this is the thing. The beauty about when it comes to trafficking in Arlington, we don't have a lot of speeding, but at the same time, when it comes to Sibley East, Amy, if you don't mind zooming where Sibley East is. There are some crosswalks which I didn't mark, but it might be wise to do it on that stretch.
Yeah, I would think that long straightaway is, you know, you're more
Right, but
likely to be moving
this is the thing though.
at a
When
higher rate of speed.
with Sibley East, they're actually more
But
interested
you
in
have
doing.
a four-way stop on this corner.
And this one,
Yeah.
Yep.
so then it'd be feeding these two, probably.
Right.
Churches there.
Well, this is the thing as well. Sibley East is very interested in doing trails, like multi-use trails and stuff. And from what me and the supervisor talked about, it might be more beneficial to not do it this grant. As you see with the purple right there, there's
What
a
kind of
walking-
trails are they talking, what are you talking about?
Multi-use is more or less like what we have. Amy, do you mind zooming out real quick? Sorry. Go down where the orange is. That type of trail that we have that connects to Sportsman Park, that's what they're more or less interested in, where it could where we have access to bikes and foot traffic, combination of the two. But with that, we don't, in my opinion, we don't have enough space to do that, nor, because those, I looked into
Yeah,
the
I was just gonna say, what are you gonna do?
well, mine is space. It also comes to cost, and this grant limits us to 500,000. Excavation alone and expansion, also we have to incorporate sidewalks. We wouldn't get as far as we would if we would just simply, Amy, if you don't mind moving over to where St. Paul is again. Just alone where that work is being done around there, that could cost us a pretty penny because costs have gone up, and from what people I've talked to, that could cost us a good amount. And I've also, I want to stress as well, when it comes to funding for this grant that I've talked to at the state, engineering costs, we're gonna have to front the bill for. Construction costs, as long as we can follow a certain criteria of the grant, which is what I've mapped out, we can get 100% back, but that's only what they give to us. So let's say we have, like I said to Michelle, our project costs $200,000 and they only give us $80,000. We have to redo our plans, and that's going to cost us additional with engineering to figure out how we're going to adapt to that and everything. So it's, I mean, I'm all for expanding the town, like focusing on bringing everything center-wise, but I don't think with, and I do apologize, I should have said this I apologize, I should have said this at P&Z, but I wasn't 100% sure until I talked to him to confirm this. But with this grant, I think we should just condense it to what we have right now.
So do you have an idea of what it will cost for just around?
Well, right around there, based off what I did, we're looking probably at 100,000. Okay,
This is a 2023 project.
exactly. And but that's if we can.
Roughly $10,000 worth of engineering costs to go into it.
I'm looking
At least.
between 7,000.
Probably more than that, especially if you're talking
I think you
about
lost me at that point.
especially
I'm
if you're
just not-
talking about the raised, the raised
Yeah, like I'm just,
ones. If you leave those out of there and then just do the other pieces, the engineering cost probably isn't gonna be near as high, but once you're talking
yeah, if you
about
just
doing
paint
those
some
raised,
lines and do a
yeah,
little stuff.
when you're
yeah.
talking about the raised crosswalks, then you're gonna run into,
That's
Big
if
time.
yeah.
that's if there.
Putting it on the main street like that.
That's if we want to do the. To be honest, the one on Main Street, I wouldn't really do the raised on that because there's not really a necessity for it. The one that I really want to do a raised one on is West Baker, where it's going to the park, and also where the school is. It's because when Frenzel, as you see with the Frenzel development, as that expands, we don't know how much traffic that will be because it is slowly expanding as we are, and there's going to be that is a housing development, so it's going to cause a lot of traffic. Exactly, as well with that, I also factored in that as well because there will be traffic, car traffic that comes out of it. So the main stretch where St. Paul Lutherans is, we might want to put a raised one there, which is only going to be one or two, depending on if we have to do West Baker as well.
What were the blue lines on Henderson Road? What are they designated?
Oh, that's the if you don't mind going on, that's the existing bike lane that we have. It's a very simple bike lane. I just wanted to show where we stand with bike lanes. It's not much. We have a lot more signage. Like, as you see with the yellow in town, that actually follows a lot of where the signage, bike signage is, but we don't have any bike lanes to provide that type of safety. And with this grant, we can get funding to do that. And I've talked to the county. They're not against what I proposed. Like I stressed to them that we're probably gonna do some good chunk of our work on county roads and everything. He's like, the head of public works there. He's fine with it. He just told me that it's gonna have to be outsourced in order for us to do it. So more or less, it's gonna be in our ballpark to do it. I don't know what that's going to be, how we're gonna be able to handle that until I talk to Bolton and Mink when we get estimates on what roughly this is going to cost. Because what the state needs to do is like they did in 2013. We need a breakdown of pretty much the overall cost of what we're doing. And then,
So if we file for the grant and we get the grant, are we paid before or after the project?
well, this is the thing. We already got when it comes to the grant, we needed to submit a letter of approval if the state's okay with us submitting for the final application. I got acceptance for that. So it more or less comes down to this is our project.
But so basically what I'm hearing is if we decide to cut the speed bump, we can still move forward. We obviously wouldn't get the funds for the speed bump. It would just be the other stuff.
Well, this is the thing. What they've emphasized to me is when it comes to construction costs, we would technically have to find the funds to do that, but we would be 100% reimbursed. If that
Okay,
makes-
what, do you have to put in engineering, do you have to put in engineering drawings when you submit the grant?
Yes, it's similar to back in 2013, so yeah.
Pay for that.
Which I would assume would come
That's
out of
not
my,
reimbursable.
No.
right, which,
I mean,
So
all
did
the
you-
other
did
stuff
you-
is just painting some lines.
Right,
There's not that
exactly.
much cost into it.
Or
If we
sidewalk.
felt that, you know, we were in dire straits and we had to have it.
and the thing is,
I mean, if you put bike lanes on, does that mean no parking on those streets?
well, there's already no parking
Not all that.
well, when it comes to
When you say
seven,
the majority, I think
There's
you got
parking
that
on
wrong
both
too.
sides.
The whole
of
thing
Seven-
is there's
well,
parking
when
on
it comes to,
Yeah.
And there's parking on both sides of
And
East
Main Street too, as well.
well, when it comes to 17, where it lines up there is no parking there. However, the street is wide enough
Where's that?
Where?
If you don't mind expanding.
Coming in
Parks on
right
there.
Right up
That's
there.
all parking.
There's parking.
There's people
there.
park there?
Yes, there is parking. However, there is enough space where we could do like where the existing bike lanes is, where they could do parking and a bike lane. That's not going to cause us issues.
I don't think so.
On a county road?
I've biked there a lot.
Well, if we have a bike lane, it would be like I said, similar to the existing from what I've driven by.
Well, but
Based on
there's, so
dimensions.
the vehicle parks there, our police car parks there.
Right.
And you're barely, I mean, it's just out of the way for you to drive by. There's not enough room for another bike lane.
You'd have to narrow the street.
You would have to
But
slightly
you
narrow.
can't.
It's county.
Because you're driving
Because
on
it's
it.
a county
If-
street.
if
It's
coun-
not wide
if-
enough.
Because they aren't gonna let you make it narrow.
No, if
There has to
county
be a standard.
if county approves it, I have looked into this. It is possible to narrow it to that.
I
It
don't think
is.
you can though. I mean, there's just not that much room.
That is for the county to decide, but it is possible because based on what I've looked at, it is possible. Because if it was not possible, I know what you're saying, Joe. But look, I looked into this, and I'm not trying to push back, but it is possible where we might not end up having to do it, where we might have to keep the signs there. But like East Main, where it corners there is no parking there. From what
From where?
from where that corner is to
Four-way stop up there.
yes,
No.
there.
There's cars on it all the time.
That's not true. There's parking there.
There's
I
parking
have
there.
seen no parking signs there, so if people are just parking there because they live there. I'm not sure, but I have seen parking
People
signs.
park all the way up
All
and
the way
down.
down
there.
there.
On
I
both
live right.
sides.
I live one block off.
I just bike on the sidewalk.
I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you guys. I just from what the signage I've seen, this is how from driving around looking at the signage. This is
Well, I can tell you,
You
East
gotta
Main
revisit
Street,
it.
you can park the whole thing, and what
Yeah.
I would really focus on from the county is there, how wide does the road itself have to be? What is there?
well.
Well,
I mean, at one point, what we talked about is vacating parking on one side of 17 to allow for a bike lane.
You
Well,
would
look,
have
we're,
to.
we're
You would
also
have to. That's the only way that you could do it.
And I think it would be the west.
there's striping on both sides
We're-
already.
we also are we're
There's a
focusing.
white line on both sides. of
There is, cause
17
county
already.
roads
Yeah.
have to have white
Be-
lines.
Yeah, but I mean, whether
But that's so you can see if you're swerving between the lanes.
Well, I think we're also.
That's what they are
You're
for.
getting off topic though,
Yeah.
because really the only thing we're focusing on is, I mean, that's secondary, the St. Paul things. Don't worry about the bike lanes or anything else. The only thing that this deals with is the St. Paul's thing.
Yes, that's
Whether or
the
not-
main thing because this is the thing. The bike lane stuff is just a recommendation because based on the grant. What really I want to focus on, like Matt said, is around St. Paul's is making it safer for children to walk and things like that. With the bike lanes, that is just to be honest with you, that's a rough idea, and I would have to. I don't even because from the numbers.
That's more
They
secondary.
have crosswalks, like people come out with flags and let the kids
Yep.
come and go.
Safety
Right,
patrol.
what kind of,
Honestly, I don't know that
But
there's.
there's really no. I mean, I've driven around that it's for them to walk to the
Yeah, but they were there
park.
before.
There's
school.
no. There's
they
no
go to
crosswalks.
they go to the park during school.
Right, but at the same time, there's really no sidewalks for them to properly walk on, and everything for that. I mean, you have apartment units that, in my opinion, should have crosswalks around that really don't. And on top of that, as well, like I said, we're also looking at future development. You have Frenzel and that new development that's coming there. You want to slowly increase the sidewalk stuff because you never know if there could be an increase in children going to that school, which I don't doubt that there's not. And at the same time, where that green is, we should have a lot of crosswalks there for that.
Well, I think at least the way that I feel is that the raised crosswalks are gonna, number one, cost a lot of money to engineer. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have crosswalks there, but the raised ones is gonna cost a lot of money for engineering, right? And that cost we have to come up with for next year, and I don't believe that we've put away $40,000 for engineering costs, Phil, right?
Right, but
And then the other piece of it is, yeah, we can have crosswalks there, we can maybe even have a light on one of them or whatever that, You know, you push a button to cross, if you wanna spend some money, that wouldn't really take a lot of engineering fees.
Well, and also
For-
let me state as well, the only raised crosswalk that I would really push for right now is the one on West Main Street. Amy, if you don't mind zooming for me.
It's right there, we see it.
It's the one, well, there's two. It's the one not necessarily where 6th is, it's, no, down one. Right there.
On
That
Adams?
is the only
Adams,
one.
that's Adams.
Yeah, sorry, West Adams. That's the only one I really would be because that's where St. Paul Lutheran's church is. That's the only one I would do. And I went over there when school was letting out. There's a lot of cars there and stuff. And it would, in my opinion, it would be wise to start out with that. I mean, it might not necessarily, if we don't want to, we could start out with a basic crosswalk and see how that works. The problem is we don't have a lot of traffic.
But the cars are there to pick the kids up.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say.
But they
mean,
also
like-
come in and out too. So even if they park there, there is.
Yeah, I mean, it's before the bus comes at like 3:20, so the cars are there around 3 to
But also
3:10.
to emphasize, as we expand residential wise,
Parent
they're
there's
gonna come that
no
way.
routine.
So it's also looking into the future. It might be wise for us to do that. At the same time, I'm not necessarily gung ho about it. It's just a suggestion. I'm more or less indifferent to it.
What do you need from the council tonight?
Well, when it comes to this plan that I present, if you guys are okay with this, I will submit this to the engineers to make engineering drawings for, and then from there,
Just
Yeah.
for around St. Paul's School.
if they,
The
yes,
less you do, the less it's gonna cost.
Yeah.
right,
Probably
if,
if we're just focusing on St. Paul's area there, a few thousand, because I know when I got estimates to submit like, some of those applications for streets and infrastructure is about $4,000, so if you can narrow it down.
When's the due date on this? To
The
have a yay
in
or a
order
nay?
to submit the final application is January 7th, and we need to submit a resolution. We need to finalize a resolution with engineering drawings. I also need to present this to St. Paul Lutheran's School Board plus Sibley East.
Yeah, the whole thing just feels rushed, and yeah, I don't know. I'm having a hard time
And I'm fine with
grasping
that.
what we're after. And I guess my recommendation is we hold off and really find out, you know, if we are gonna focus in on that area, what are we actually gonna do and try to be more prepared for the next go.
I know in that area, there's not a lot of sidewalks. I think there's some around the school, but I know when we delivered papers in that area, I know my kids were walking pretty much on the street the whole time.
Well,
I know there's
On
one down.
West Baker, right?
I know there's one that goes a few houses down West Baker, but around the school, I don't think there's much. I know there's not much on 6th and 7th.
The one side of when you leave the school to go towards the park, there's the sidewalk.
Continuous all the way down?
Yeah, I think so.
where
The other side, there's nothing.
where
Nothing,
exactly
right.
are you referring to, May?
I would,
6th,
6th?
6th.
Because
where the yellow line is.
no,
painted.
yeah, Joe is correct. Because I also am responsible
there's
for the
nothing on
sidewalk.
Baker's, nothing
Right.
at all.
Right,
And that's the one thing, because if you look where West Baker is, beyond where the green is, there is sidewalk there, but it needs massively repaired.
Yeah, I was gonna say there is.
Yeah,
some
it's-
Baker.
Because as council has approved, I'm also responsible for doing the sidewalk mapping, which I'm currently working
Well,
on.
part of it, like,
Yeah, that
up
way.
from,
Right.
but not to go to the park, there's
And-
nothing.
This is the thing, Joe, I'm not against what you said. I did find this kind of last minute, and with the mapping that I found, I figured let's see if we can maybe do something. If you want, the only thing is that I will say to that is there is no guarantee after talking to my contact at the state that the next grant for the whole town is actually going to happen. No one will give me a 100% guarantee on it. So if we want to do something like improve sidewalk and safe routes, I feel we should maybe jump on this, but at the same time we could hold off. I leave it at your guys' decision, because all I will say is if you guys do not approve or deny this map,
Well, I think you
I
have to,
won't
you know,
have a
everybody has
proper
to
time.
stack hands on what we, you know, for one, what is the need, and then you know,
We have
how do
received
we
a
wanna?
complaint from someone who lives on Baker Street. Do you remember the woman that came in concerned
Yes.
about children
I
being
remember
run over
hearing
on
about
it. Yes.
West Baker Street?
Down in this area. more.
Yes, and
Yes.
that's
Well, there's
why-
kids that are playing like crazy over there, and that park
Right.
is one that's
Busy.
highly utilized, and they're coming from the apartments straight over, and they're all over the street, and,
Yes.
I don't know that a sidewalk would change a lot of the behavior that I've seen there, but,
it would cover it. To be honest, it would help the city to show that we're at least
Yeah.
trying.
yeah,
She had requested speed bumps in the street.
Yeah, which don't work with snow removal, doesn't work with snow removal.
I mean, I think, in my opinion, and I don't know, I can make a motion that go ahead and get some engineering costs, but, leave out the speed bumps or the raised, crosswalks would be my recommendation, and probably not to exceed, I don't even know.
Well, I
I
can't
don't
guarantee
even know
that.
what kind of funds do we have.
So then we're looking just at this area. down
Well,
here.
and I mean, here's the other thing, Phil, if you can go and you can, you know, show it to one of our engineers and say, how much would it cost for you to do this much? How much would
So we
it
have an
cost to
idea
do a
of the
couple more
cost.
Yeah,
blocks?
cause we're,
Before I
if
make
we
a
vote to go
decision.
ahead with it, we're vote to,
I-
vote to.
I can't give you an
hire
open
engineering
checkbook.
firm too.
Yeah.
Well, no, and I
well,
understand
they
that.
should be able to quote that, I
Exactly,
mean, I
Yeah,
have
they
them
should be
quote,
able to give us a
for
rough-
engineering
Yeah, they
fees.
should be able
Right.
to say
Cause that's what I
ballpark.
did with the BDPI.
Yeah.
I
Right.
had
Yeah.
them
Yeah.
quote.
But this is the only thing to that, and I can get a quote. That's no issue. But if I get a quote, our next meeting is towards the
It's the
Your last chance.
20th.
this, and I do apologize. It's just there.
well, but again, we're,
I can't,
At the same time, I
one year
do
isn't gonna change anything.
right,
right.
I mean, this has been that way
Yeah.
since
This is the thing as
48
well.
or
I
something like that.
I didn't
Long time
really
ago.
pull the trigger on this because when it came to the letter of approval, I wasn't going to go forward if we didn't get accepted. So I do understand that this does feel a little bit rushed, and I'm not necessarily
So, I mean,
against.
it's a big financial decision
Yeah.
to make,
Right.
and to make it on, you know,
well, without even knowing what our engineering costs are, because that's is on us.
right.
That is on us,
Exactly.
yeah.
And which I assumed would be one of the biggest hurdles, and I'm not against getting quotes, and then if the next grant that comes that was for the whole town, I would have
if
a
we
better
could file a
plan.
grant for a grant to pay for the engineering costs, then it'd be a no, you know.
Well, if it was only that simple, But I mean, it's all how you want to approach this, because I'm not against laying this lie, getting some quotes, seeing how we are, but at the same time, for you engineers that I talk to, I mean, I've had family members that are engineers. Engineering costs can change. Like, let's say if the next
Right.
grant for the whole town comes in, those costs might vary. So
How about if you fine tune this, you know what area that the council probably would be looking at, and then get the engineering estimates, and we make a decision on the 20th, the meeting of the 20th.
it's
Either move ahead or don't move ahead.
Yeah,
So-
either pass a resolution that or
I
don't.
mean,
Or
yeah,
don't,
I
or
mean,
drop it.
right, and I don't think that, it's the city that's going forward with this, project, and not necessarily the schools that are in question, and both of them would be happy if something like what
Exactly.
Oh,
went
sure.
through anyhow.
yeah. No,
So,
They'll support
yeah,
that.
I don't think it's a matter of you having to report them before you go ahead with the grant. But yeah, for us to get costs, I think
Okay.
that's what that would be.
So-
Well,
just to be clear, from 7th and a half to 6th Avenue, from there to where right there. You guys want me to focus on that region right there?
That's where,
Well, even in the summertime, you've got soccer going on, and I mean, that whole
Right.
place is packed.
yep,
Okay. So no, I will focus on that. I will talk to our city engineers, get some quotes from it, and then I'll come back to you next meeting, and let's see if we want to pull the trigger.
Okay.
Believe me, you're not gonna hear me fight this. I do apologize.
So one other
So-
question, what's the purple over there?
That's the
That
existing
is something that
Oh, the other one?
that's the existing.
Or
No,
up higher.
north.
Up in there,
It's a different shade, ain't it?
that was
a trail of some
something
kind, huh?
that back in 2013 when we submitted for something, it was a walking
walking path?
loop, yeah, a walking path, over where Sibley County stuff is. I figured it would actually still be a good idea because I know I've talked.
Is that the?
That's the
baseball-
sports
base-
complex.
Right.
Yeah, I
Sports
was gonna say, it's the
complex.
baseball
Along the
park.
highway, the Brinkman's
Yes,
there.
Sibley,
track,
yeah,
yeah.
all that. And I've talked to
Okay,
some,
so numbers.
and some people that I've talked to in town would like something like that. So I figured, why not? Let's see if it'd be interesting. But at the same time,
Well, the other one gets used a lot in,
right?
in
Yeah.
the summertime.
Mhm.
And I could see that one getting used as well, if it's just a
Yeah.
walking path, there's
Sure.
people that do
Yeah,
it. Just for
especially in the area,
exercise.
yeah.
Yeah.
They just,
And to
And
be
plus,
honest,
if there's events going on, there's something to see.
that would actually be pretty.
For free?
With that, if Sibley East is all supportive of that, that's pretty straightforward to make. We might have to clear a few trees or so here, but it wouldn't be that hard to make. It's just I would have to see if Sibley East would be okay with us doing that, because given that's their property, and I'm not sure if they're still interested in doing something like that.
I'll make a motion to
Okay.
table,
I'll
the,
second that motion.
project for safe routes to school, and waiting for an estimate from the engineers.
Motion by Councilmember Batchor, second by Councilmember Thomas to table the proposed project for safe routes to school until the December 20th meeting. Is that what you meant, is to
Yep.
at the next meeting, all right?
To get that engineer
To get the
estimate
engineer
of cost
estimates and
of
such.
engineering, yeah.
So again, the motion is to table us till the December 20th council meeting.
Focus
Any-
on St. Paul's.
And,
Yes.
Yeah, focusing on the St. Paul's area. Any other comments, questions? All in favor say aye.
I,
Opposed, no. Motion carried.
Awesome. Thank you guys very much for
Thank you.
the input.
Item 15, approve or deny changes to personnel policy, section 2.16, alcohol, mood altering drugs.
When we received some applications, a question came in about alcohol use and an applicant. So I went to Attorney Arneson with my question. And we talked about it, and he asked me to go to the League of Minnesota Cities, which I did. And I pointed out what was in our personnel policy regarding the use of alcohol to the League of Minnesota Cities. And I worked with a woman from the league who focused on HR, and I read to her what was in our policy that referenced more than 2 drinks in it was in a 4-hour period. And she did not like that language in our personnel policy, and we kind of roughed out. She walked me through something that would be more appropriate for our personnel policy, as did Attorney Arneson. So that's what I went over with the League of Minnesota Cities. And then she informed me that her supervisor would also be calling me about our personnel policy, which he then did. On Friday, her supervisor called me, and I went over what the lady and I had gone over, and Attorney Arneson. And the supervisor told me that, they prefer to see a zero tolerance policy in cities' personnel policies towards alcohol. But he liked this step, putting in the no alcohol within the 12-hour period before EMS responds to anything. He said he liked that, you're making a step in the right direction, versus having the zero alcohol tolerance in there. So this was the recommendation that 2 people from the League of Minnesota Cities, Attorney Arneson and myself, have come up with to change our personnel policy. We also added the language on the mood altering drugs.
so when you said EMS, can you clarify what that all?
Emergency
That would be
services, all of them.
Emergency services, all of them.
So ambulance and fire?
And
Ambulance,
police.
fire,
Police, ambulance, fire, police, okay.
That's what I figured, I just wanted to make sure.
How is that gonna affect what happens now? And what we got,
They cannot
Good.
have alcohol in their system within the past 12 hours to respond to a call.
Yeah.
Then they need to stay home. If the pager goes off and they know they've had either, whether it's a prescription drug, non-prescription drug, or alcohol in the past 12 hours, they cannot
I mean,
respond
that could
to a call.
essentially alleviate anyone from responding to a call.
well, that's
Mm.
Like,
what,
is that,
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I'm guessing.
I mean,
Chief Zaski, would
I
you
think
wanna
there's
comment?
folks that
Yeah,
maybe
see
have
if you,
one.
yeah,
Yeah.
sure, come on up.
Come on up, I wanna hear
That-
you.
That's what I was,
Minnesota City said it's about, it doesn't matter if you're driving
I'm
or
like-
not.
Huge effect on our fire department.
It'll be a one guy show showing up, right, John? You, maybe?
Yeah, well, in years past, we have 0 tolerance for driving, 0 tolerance for anything with medical, it was 0. We had from League of Cities, and that's probably 6-8 years ago.
We
could have
talked about that.
2 drinks in a 4-hour period.
They said that was inaccurate. It was interpreted by the city of Arlington incorrectly.
Oh,
Okay, well anyhow, go ahead, keep going. I wanna hear from you.
So, I didn't know I was gonna be talking about this, but it will have a huge effect on us.
I think big time, and even, you know,
And, well, I just question the 12-hour period, because if you have one drink, wait an hour, and you got tested, you would test 0.
I think it's probably more like 2 to 3 hours.
No, it's not.
Well,
I'm about 100% positive on this.
We did some defensive driving at the county, and the state trooper said it can stay in your system for almost 24 hours. This is the recommendation from the League of Minnesota Cities. They're looking at it from the point of our liability. If someone shows up to a fire call, it's about the judgment call. So it wasn't necessarily even focusing on driving. It was focusing on, are they making a good judgment call when they're out there?
I have one question for the council. If you pass this, who is gonna monitor this? With currently up 27 members, there's no way I can go around to each member at a call and check them if they've been drinking.
well, I think that's the crux of this. In order for the city to insulate itself from liability, the city has to have policies in place that will look reasonable. If there is an incident and someone brings a lawsuit, and that's what the league doesn't like about the current policy, where it says, you know, in our written policy that you can have 2 drinks in 4 hours.
so you also have to uphold them. So if we enact this,
Yeah.
and we don't,
Well,
we don't
reasonable,
live by
then-
it,
yeah.
reasonable procedures in place, which does not mean that everybody gets a blood test when they
No, no,
respond to a call.
No,
Or
I'm just saying if it
breathalyzer.
goes on and we live like we were living, where, you know, Bill has 2 drinks when he gets home from work and he happens to be on the fire department and he's responded to calls for 27 years. I'm hoping there's no Bill, cause I'm just making a name up at this point. But, and there's never been an issue. Well, if that person continues to do that, and yet something all of a sudden happens, well, the city always knew that I was doing that, and,
Yeah.
I mean, it essentially negates even the policy to begin with if you don't
Enforce.
enforce it. Or have reasonable means to enforce it.
Either way, the 2 drink minimum in 4 hours wasn't gonna be enforced anyways. You basically, it's a judgment, it's just basically a cover for the city. I mean, you're not going around, well, did you have a drink, you know.
I have to say, our department is really good. They
Right.
know that I get down on them. If I can smell alcohol, I send them home.
Right.
So they don't even show up currently now. But, you know, if you're at a graduation, for instance, you have 1 beer, and we have a major fire,
Right.
I could lose half the department instantly.
I think you're getting off a little bit, Joe.
Yeah.
Like with a personnel policy,
Huh?
you are expected to follow the personnel policy. I do not police every staff member every
I
day.
get it, but the chief is going to, you know, explain what the city is wanting, and the fire
The League of Minnesota Cities. is
folks are gonna
personnel
also
policy.
want to uphold, you know, what that is, and that could mean no one to respond because they had 1 drink within 12 hours.
Well,
I think there's a,
Ideally, you put policies in place and then, you know, you put it out there and
Protect us.
you think that people are gonna abide by those policies that you put in place. Every day, people are not abiding by policies or ordinances that are out there, right?
Correct.
even though we try, well, I'm
Well,
serious.
when
It's
I,
true.
when I look at this, the 12-hour period was
Yeah,
hangs me up
100%.
because you could have a glass of wine with dinner, and you can get a call at
Right.
5 a.m. and now you can't respond. That's what we're putting in
That's-
place.
doesn't
That's
seem-
what we're putting in place. I'm saying the time, the amount of time is what I'm hooked up on because you can look it up on the internet if you don't believe me, but look up, if you drink a drink, how long before you're zero?
On the breathalyzer is what you're.
Well,
implying.
breathalyzer, any tough method they use today, blood. I'm just saying, they know by how much you weigh to how much alcohol is in an average drink, whether it's beer, booze, or whatever, as long as it's not poured way heavy.
Yeah, you think there'd
But
be
it's
something
all
like-
calculated by
You
weight.
can't be impaired
Right.
from
How much-
alcohol
There's so many factors
versus.
though, it depends how
I-
much you
I
have
just-
to eat and.
I just think
Yes, it
that
does. There
if
are
we put it
other
in
factors
place, the
involved.
way that it's written, and we don't have means to police it, that life will go on like it was, and we're still, the liability we thought we had will not be there. Because the city knew that this is what we've done, we've always done it this way. To me, it just negates the policy. If you have a policy and you don't follow it, it's no longer a policy in the court of law.
Of course, even if we don't change this, we had a policy already.
That's the thing.
Yeah, it's
And
just
we
the
weren't
legitimate-
enforcing it, were we? If chief says he smelled alcohol on somebody, you'd send him home.
He
That's
has
the-
been, like
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
is,
exactly.
that
That-
is,
And maybe that's the level of enforcement that will be there after this is changed, if it's changed.
Well, I have to submit to the council that the League of Cities Insurance Trust insures us.
Correct.
And our insurance company is saying, this is the policy that they would like us to adopt. So it's my recommendation that we adopt it. And I understand all the points that you're making, but again, what we're doing is we're saying this is a standard that we are striving for. And if the personnel are aware of that standard, it's their responsibility to abide by it. Of course, it goes without saying that if somebody does have a glass of wine or a couple of beers and responds to a fire call 3 or 4 hours later, how likely is it going to be detected? I'd say the likelihood is 0. However, if somebody is, and from my experience as a prosecutor for 40 years, there's a vast difference in tolerance among individuals. I can recall a guy once who tested .35, which for a normal person would have put them unconscious or dead, and he was exhibiting no bad driving conduct. I can't remember why the officer pulled him over, but it wasn't because of his driving. So, on the other hand, other people have very low tolerance, and a couple of beers and they're all over the road. I think we shouldn't look on this as being that this is something that's going to be rigidly enforced. We don't have the means to do so. I don't think the league expects us to do so. I don't think any other cities do so.
Yeah.
However, the problem the league has with our policy right now is it's okay to have a couple drinks within 4 hours of responding. And again, operating on my experience as a prosecutor for 40 years, every DWI arrest, when an officer asked the driver how many drinks he'd had, I had a couple.
I would like to see it be
So-
no drinks within 6 hours. And
Yeah,
to me,
12 is
that
an
12 is a
arbitrary-
very, very long
Our-
number.
12 is an arbitrary
And I
figure.
think that
Yeah.
the 6
We
hour
talked
would,
about 12 or
would-
24, I talked about with the League of Minnesota Cities.
Wow,
Yeah.
24.
cause I mean, we went from 2
Four,
drinks, and,
12.
what was it, 2 drinks in 4 hours or something, to, no drinks in 6 hours, and gives you,
We could run that
It
by
gives
the
it
league
time.
and see what they think.
I'll make a motion to table it, and if we can get some more information from the league, how they
6
feel
hours.
about that, to drop it to 6.
Can I interject one second?
Yeah.
I
Sure.
respect all your thoughts, and
Yep.
here's where I'm sitting right now. I have 3 openings on the fire department. We spent probably $1,000 in advertising. We had 4 applicants. 2 pulled their applicants back. Come January, I'm gonna have a massive retirement. If you get this too tight with this alcohol, we will not get anybody young to apply.
Absolutely. And then ones that are on it are not gonna be able to show up for the goal. And this is a big
You're putting me in a
hindrance.
really tough position, so I want you to all step back and really think about this time thing, because 12 hours, that's,
Yeah, that's coming home from work and not
But,
being able to do
okay,
anything.
other
Having a drink if you want.
companies have alcohol policies in there, and they don't, I don't remember what ours is, but you go out, you go to the bar, maybe you're out till 9, 10 o'clock at night, you go to work at 6 o'clock in the morning. That's less than 12, that's not even 12 hours. It's not enforced. They're always breathalyzing you before you go to work. I think
Well,
you're
when it
reading way
comes-
too much into this as
Yeah,
far
yeah.
as it's just a policy that we have to do by
To
the
protect
league to
ourselves.
protect ourselves.
You lose
You know-
protection when you don't
Don't enforce
upkeep
it, yeah.
You lose all protection. The city would be liable if we had a policy, and yes, we would. Absolutely, we would be liable if we had a policy in place and we knowingly bypassed it.
Well, we're
And
not.
something had happened.
If
Somebody
something
showed up.
happened and the person, okay, let's say we have a major accident or one of your, I mean, I know your drivers are, whoever's driving the rigs are not gonna be drinking at all. I know you guys are way too professional for that. But let's just hypothetically, in any situation, we have an accident or something,
it's a 0 on medicals.
right, so, I
They
don't
would
know, I
listen
don't know
to the
what the
recording
right
and
way
the
to do this is,
conversation
but
we're
if we
having
have to
right
go
now.
by what the league is saying, we have to go by what the league is telling us to do. And I understand what you're saying, if we have a policy, we don't enforce it, but again, how do you enforce it?
Well,
Because,
I'm asking that we bring that back to them, over trying
Right.
to really uphold what the policy would be. And 1 in 12 hours, I feel is gonna be devastating to the folks that are on there, and we would have a mass exodus.
So they're not even saying 1 in
Outside.
12 hours, they're
Or
saying
0, well,
0.
0 in 12 hours.
yeah.
So basically, no more drinking.
have you looked into what other cities have
No
for
more
policy?
drinking ever.
I did not check, I just went to the league,
Mhm.
because they do insure us.
Yeah.
Right,
So I
and if
know
the
that
insurance-
Makes sense. Councilmember
I'll second
Batcher.
that motion.
this would be to table, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then
bring it
find
back
out
to
if
the
we can
next
go
meeting,
back
please.
and.
We've sent people home for smelling alcohol on their breath. I mean,
Well,
in fact,
obviously,
we
if smell it- if
fired-
they
we
smell it,
fired
right.
Folks who
If they
had
smell
recently
it.
started who, came in a little bit tipsy because they had an issue.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Batchor, second by Councilmember Thomas to table the topic of changing the personnel policy regarding dealing with alcohol and mood-altering drugs. Any other comments, questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Item 16, discussion on filling the vacant council position.
I guess there will not be as much discussion as anticipated. Attorney Arneson and I had spoken about how we will go about filling the vacant position. It is by council resolution.
Yes, this has come up in the past, and we're a charter city, and under our charter provision in section 2.03 sub G, it says any vacancy shall be filled by resolution of the council.
Right.
And in the law, the word shall means that's the way you do it, period. If it says may, then it's optional. So we do have a vacant position. Council needs to fill it by resolution, not by election.
Right. I know that comes up all the time, well, let's have a special election. We can't, according to the
Can't
charter.
even do it. So
So it's just a matter of how the council wants to approach it. There was a point here, within the last year or so, we asked for applications from people year and a half ago that people might, ones that are interested, and,
Well, we had one who was on the ballot, and who was on the council.
He's in Greenell now.
Oh, yes.
yep, yeah, he moved to Greenough. Rick? Yeah, Rick is in
He's in
Greenough.
so.
Darn it.
I called him already, just to see where he was,
That's
but.
not an option.
But, so do we wanna start that process over again? In other words, advertise
Applications.
applications?
That's what I would do.
Yeah, you don't have a choice.
There were two that were on the last
And
recommended,
they can apply again.
and they can apply again. And
But
if
they
they're
didn't,
interested.
those two hadn't ran,
Those two didn't run,
so
no.
I think they're
Maybe they're not even
kinda made the
interested
decision on their own.
Well, we interviewed all of them, I believe.
No, I
didn't
get
we?
that, but
Yeah,
He said they didn't.
the election was.
Oh,
had-
I
had
see, I
Gone
see.
up and
Yeah, yeah.
they didn't run.
yeah,
Right.
so put it out for interest?
Applications, like
Yeah,
last time.
applications. We don't have to be in a rush with this. I mean, it's not
No.
something that has to, I would recommend we
Put it
probably
out there
swear
for a
somebody
while.
in February, their first meeting in February, something like that. Get
Yeah.
through our reorganization in January and through the
Got a couple big
holidays, and
meetings coming
so,
up,
okay. That seems to be the consensus then. Advertise for that. Item 17, discussion on Facebook posts made by our entities.
Michelle Badger asked that this be put on the council, so I guess I'll let you talk about this one.
Yeah, I think, as far as like our, putting information out there, as
Thanks.
specifically last week or the week before with the school and the police department throwing out the, notice or whatever, what happened at the school or what was going on at the school with the investigation and such. I have no problem in them doing that if, it's discussed with the parties that they were gonna do this and such. As well as I believe that if it's a announcement, then comments should be turned off. So it's a public service announcement or whatever. And so none of this back and forth, badgering, this, that, whatever else. There's certain situations where we do want input from the community, right? Throwing out a survey or doing other things maybe on Facebook. Or any of the other
Was there something negative come
platforms.
out of it, or what?
There was
was a lot
negative
of
com,
negativity.
yeah, there was a lot of negative
There was a lot of
comments.
very
comments.
angry parents because nobody, the school
Siblings
did
didn't-
not inform anybody.
I don't know, I just
So-
question freedom of
But-
speech.
Well, I
But
think-
but I don't believe that
I
it should
mean-
be,
But I think that the, if it's an emergency services and they wanna get information out to the community,
it was after it was over. The investigation was over and then the police department put it out. Prior to when the school, I mean, as soon as it was over, the police put it out right before the school was able to put it out. And
They
it shall
didn't do
point
anything
all
wrong.
their, I mean, it was over,
yeah.
right? I mean, the
And you're right,
timing
you're
was
right.
just
I mean,
right
so
there.
I read it and then kinda kept going back to check on the comments because I really didn't know, really what was going on, and it seemed like it, there were some folks, very upset
Yes,
over, the situation. And, I'd just like to say that I feel from, at least from what I read, it seemed as though it was handled very well.
It was.
And that, essentially the focus was on trying to ensure that, we didn't have some sort of a, event come out of, what was
Police department,
being
sheriff's
called.
office did a very good job.
Yes.
I think it was handled well from there.
So, everyone who commented, they're grown adults, at least from what I seen, those were the parents, and if they wanna make that comment out to the world,
They can.
they can. Like, we may not, I don't necessarily agree with how they chose to go about their, commenting. Like, I personally would not have done that myself, but, that was their way of processing it. Like, I processed it completely different. Like, I was looking at, okay, in the moment of what happened, what's most concerning? And, for me, that would be, making sure that we weren't gonna have some sort of event. All the kids are out there texting, cause half of the comments were, yeah, I got a text from my, my boy or my daughter, and,
The kids were
and
talking about
what the
it.
heck, and, sure, it went distasteful for Sibley East, it really did. there was a lot of negativity. I'm sure they heard a lot about it, but, and there was other folks that were like, oh, I didn't know anything about it, sure, you know, and I obviously didn't know about it until I saw the post. And
It's all about
like I said, it was probably 3
communication.
times I went back to it just to, you know,
Well,
just
no.
kinda see. We had a past council member that, you know, shared his beliefs on there.
Yes.
I personally would not have done that,
To each their own.
but that was, you know, that was his right to do so.
Right, I guess my only opinion on it is I think that the police should be able to do that, right? But if they're broadcasting some information from the city of Arlington, it shouldn't be a place for people to comment and on the broadcast. That's my opinion,
Yeah.
Right.
okay?
I mean,
everybody has
everywhere
one.
is.
But it's-
Anything
it's
you
a
look at on
citizen's
Facebook,
right, though,
it's,
right?
it's,
Yeah.
whether it's Channel 5 or, you know, whatever, and in this case, this was a media release to, you know, the citizens, and, cause I believe it went through the police department's Facebook page,
Yes,
and then
Correct.
so,
the city had shared it. and
yep, yep.
I don't follow the police one, so when I seen it on, you know, the other one, then of course I got to scope in on, you know, what was really happening, which seemed to be, you know, more tuned in down in the comments section, but again, I don't think that, you know, for me, it wasn't necessarily the right thing to do. I wouldn't have done it myself. Now I wasn't exactly in all of their shoes. You know, I didn't have a kid in the school, so I wasn't feeling that, but, like my mind went to, okay, they had to figure out this computer, they had to track it down. Like I thought, oh great, this was some pretty nifty detective stuff going on in a short period of time. I have seen some other comments on different posts that went kinda crazy too, and I don't know if they got shut off or deleted it or what, but they were, I don't remember those posts for those ones. But like, if they don't have that avenue, then how, I don't know, how do they get that out?
I think for the most part, this was, I think I've only had a couple that I've seen that cities posted or that have drawn some really harsh comments, and this was one of them, but coming from the situation, people maybe had, you know, I mean, they got a right to voice their opinion. You can't pick and choose what you're gonna allow people to comment on.
It would be difficult for me to
Right,
police them.
right, so,
Well, wasn't there some issue where the message went out from school to some of the or the parents of some of the students, but not all? In other words,
Yeah, I think like
the mailing list was,
the middle school and not the high school.
Okay.
But
there
yeah,
was
I
a
mean, we found,
glitch or whatever, yeah.
yeah, and that was communicated, and the week after, the superintendent put something in the paper.
Yeah, it was in the paper last
So,
week.
to explain
Yep.
the policies and procedures, right? And I mean, I guess for us, as a community, I mean, we don't run into this, right? We hope we never have to run into it, and when it does happen, everybody gets really anxious and scared. It's a true
It's
thing.
gonna happen, but you wanna get the word out, I think is the most important part.
Transparency is important.
Yeah.
You know, like in the moment, I mean, the last thing I want is a bunch of parents, if I was dealing with an active shooter or something like that, the last thing I want is 55 parents showing up armed, trying to pick their kids up because, you know, someone's coming and shooting them. I
But
don't
that
know.
was, that's what was said then during in the comments of that, right? Well,
I
why
don't-
didn't we know, why didn't we know?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
during the time when it was happening, now we've,
Yeah, and again, for me, I was
It-
like,
right,
well,
the
yeah, duh,
policy-
they're trying to resolve,
I mean-
and they're already on it,
Yeah.
from, at least
Mhm.
from the way it turned out.
I mean, they secured everything and, I mean,
Yep.
then communicated.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just my thought on it, you know, as far as like comments on certain things, but, or at the very least, if there's gonna be, if there's an event that, or something, anything, that the other party is aware that they're going to be, that the city's gonna be posting.
But this was
Good,
police.
bad, negative.
This was the police.
Yeah,
I
like-
will say, yeah, so no,
Well, police, I
Okay.
mean, so
well,
they
that's fine,
no,
They
but
did
they
a police report.
Let me
Yeah.
finish.
Yeah.
So they responded to
Yeah.
a 911 call, I would assume,
yeah,
and there was cars, and people would see it,
Talking.
and he created a media release, and that was then,
Thrown on there, sure.
it was put on there to get the message out.
And it was gonna be
Because
shared.
otherwise you're going by seeing four
Otherwise,
police cars, what was going on.
Sure.
And they
Yeah.
did the right thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think they have to do that.
Yeah, he did the
They
right
owe it to
thing.
the citizens to report out, especially on something like that.
No, I'm not arguing that it shouldn't have been put on there. The
police, don't need permission
So-
from.
Yeah, well, I'm just
That-
saying,
that
the
wasn't my point.
comments, you could turn it off, but don't you want the feedback? I mean, even good, bad, or otherwise, at least you're hearing it. I mean,
I mean, could he have
Facebook did shut
contacted
it
them
down,
you
and
know,
they're
"Hey,
shutting
I'm
everybody
putting this
down."
out,
Mhm.
possibly. I mean, that could have
I
happened,
wouldn't know,
but
'cause I'm not on
the
it.
police do not, the police in the city don't have to ask permission to something that they were responded to. So that would be like, we had a fire call and, you know, we put a statement out because it's a massive fire, or Fox 9 is down here to look at it or something. I mean, we're not, I don't know, we're not
Which
gonna
they
go
did.
asking somebody to,
I remember 2 years ago, I got a phone call from Fox 9. What can you tell me about this fire that's going on north of Arlington? I said, what? I had no idea. Here these guys are out there fighting the swamp fire out there.
Oh, that one, yeah,
I
that
had
was huge.
no idea what it was. I didn't even hear the sirens.
I seen it on the way home from work.
So, okay, any changes we think need to be made then in the Facebook posts made by the city, anything, or, I mean, this discussion was good. That's what we wanna be able to do here is speak our minds and let us know let the public know what we're thinking. And Councilmember Batcher, do you still have,
No, I'm good.
you're
I
good
mean, I
with it?
just-
All
yeah.
right, okay. All right, with council's approval, we'll move ahead.
Let's move ahead.
Item 18, discussion on McGuire bill for Seneca site.
This was for the transformer over there, changing that electrical hookup, remember from the back that went to Baker Street. And it's more than we had discussed at that council meeting, what was gonna be, stuff on there. It's supposed to be the 18,000, see right there, 18,000. Put with the pointer, 18,100 is what we had voted on, I put everything in here, my notes and
Yeah,
it's
everything.
so
little over
why,
11.
why was the cost so
Yeah,
much
why?
higher?
I did not grill, McGuire dropped it off, and then I looked at it and thought, it took me a little while to process
I
it, so I
see.
didn't grill him, like, on the spot. But I took it, and I took it back to my desk and sat down, and I'm like, this is not right.
Right.
And then I basically emailed you guys after I'd sat down and processed it myself, I was like, this isn't
So it's
right.
like,
So I haven't,
It's 11,000 over.
yeah, it's a lot.
so,
That's a lot of-
so
That's-
the-
yeah,
was it
that's
twice
my
as much.
attention.
MVP, or who was the one who quoted it for us?
Minnesota
at
Valley.
Minnesota Valley, do you remember they were at that, we
Yeah.
met at the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they
I
handed
remember.
out the sheet that I included in the packet, and they were here.
And wasn't McGuire there at the same time when
Yes,
that
he
was
there
handed
too.
out?
Yeah, he was at
Yeah,
the.
that's right, he
Yes.
was at
He
the,
was there too.
uh-huh.
Cause,
Now I got a different bill, so
well, because
that's
I
why.
remember we said not to exceed when
Well,
we
you
did
saw
it.
my hand.
Yeah, I
note
seen
in
it,
there,
it was
too.
Joe on it.
Yeah, $11,685 over.
Yeah, it threw me, I didn't grill him, but I sat down and kind of picked it apart then.
I think we'd have to look at the quote that they had.
I would,
Is there any details on there that
No,
say
they
that it,
just handed out
includes
that-
this, doesn't include that?
It just says,
There was
it says
just
it over
this.
there,
Mhm.
option one, price 18,
That's what MBEC handed out to us.
but who'd they get the price from?
Probably McGuire.
Minnesota,
Yeah.
Well, they would have had a, yeah.
they got it from McGuire. Personally, I
Yeah, so
think,
why is McGuire billing us and not
yeah,
MVC?
I think all the parties in this should be brought together and say
Yeah.
what's going on, as far
Too
as
far off.
Sywick, he pledged half of it, and
So I
his,
paid his.
or he paid his
90
half.
He already paid his. 'cause
Well,
he
but
did
why-
his
He
share.
why
didn't
did-
have to, I mean, I think, I think that one's kind of a tricky one, you got someone who's obviously trying to sell, and
Yeah.
he was trying to close the deal, so he
Sure.
agreed to the half.
Right.
He gave me his
but
check right away.
I think we should ask Minnesota Valley Electric why their quote that
Doesn't
they
match what we
created
got now.
doesn't match what the billing was.
Yeah, I think we do, we
Yeah.
have to at least understand why there's such a
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
overrun.
Should we go ahead and pay the 18,100 that we agreed to? At least for now, and.
Well,
and-
half of
Half
it's
of it.
already been
Minus
paid.
Minus
Minus
the,
Cywex,
what's 9,500 that
right.
Cywex gave us.
Or gave them already, who did he pay? He paid
You
us.
said he gave.
He paid us,
Yeah,
so
he
we're
paid.
sitting on Cywex money.
So I would pay what,
What
Yeah,
was
just a
the-
suggestion, a letter, as a matter of leverage, you know, if McGuire is waiting for all of their money, they might be a little more willing to bargain. As a general rule, if someone exceeds their quote by over 25%, the tendency of the court is to reject it as being a bait and switch situation, where somebody
But-
bids low in order to get the job and then they,
Mhm.
you know, add
But-
to it afterwards.
Yeah.
Unless
So
there's
I
a,
think we need to understand where the overrun came from and who,
unless
if it was
there's
actually
change
McGuire.
orders.
Unless,
Yeah.
but was it McGuire that actually quoted, or was that Minnesota Valley, and then when they just
Maybe.
hired
Yeah,
McGuire?
yeah.
And then
So
it
we need to
cost more
understand
than
that.
MVC expected, and
Yeah, I don't know how McGuire got into it.
well,
Who secured them? MBAC, or it almost would have had to have been.
one other thing in this environment, as you're all well aware, there could have been substantial increases in equipment costs. You know, which would have been beyond
They should have already
McGuire's
known that when
control.
they were, when we got the bid.
That's a
Right.
pretty big jump, I mean,
Big time.
I know what you're saying, and that, cause all industries are seeing costs increase big time, but that's,
That's double.
Yeah, I think look into it, talk to MBEC, and then talk to McGuire.
Get-
find
And I
out.
told Lisa not to pay, I gave Lisa
Yeah.
the bill, but I said, don't
Yeah,
pay it
just
yet.
hold up on everything
I
until we
told
get it
him,
ironed out.
Yeah, we gotta
And
find
I-
out why it was
Figure
higher.
it out.
I'd say contact MBEC and McGuire and get everybody together to hash it out, why did it run over?
Yep.
Yeah,
'Cause
so we're just gonna wait on the
Just
bill
wait
until
on it.
we get this all
Yeah.
figured out.
With the users
I would
review.
agree.
Okay.
All right, it is 8:16, and at this time, we are going to go into closed session. So